Unlock hidden profits. 6 proven strategies for small business growth is today's episode with Leslie Hassler. Leslie is the powerhouse behind Your Business Rules, a consultancy firm transforming small businesses into freedom-generating machines. Leveraging 17 years of entrepreneurial experience and a strong background in marketing, finance, and leadership, Leslie guides businesses toward predictable profits and sustainable growth. So Leslie, tell us about how small businesses can get strategies for increasing their profit.
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
So, I think it's really interesting. We have a very interesting concept about profit, right? And as we begin to talk about, what are the strategies to get more profit, I think we got to start with the basic math. What is profit? And profit is nothing more than what's left over at the end of the day. So if you have money coming in and you have money going out, what's left over, if it's positive, is profit. If it's negative, it's a loss, right? But it's really interesting the relationship we have down there to profit. And the strategy that you use is going to be completely dependent upon a few key aspects of your business, like where is the problem and what's your profit goal. So I think one of the first strategies that we have to put in place as small business owners is to understand that profit is an intention, something you expect, not a reward for working hard or being big enough. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the problem that I see, though, is that people, when they're starting their business, they're like, when I get big enough, I will have profit. But the true question is, when is big enough actually big enough? And that is one of those strategies to where for a small business owner, typically when they're like, oh, it's 100,000, then they get to the 100,000, they're like, oh, but this isn't big enough. I thought it would be, but it's not. Then they'll get maybe to 250 or maybe $500,000 and it's still not big enough. And I will tell you, I have seen behind the scenes of a lot of businesses, and 7-figure businesses can be just as broke as 5-figure businesses when it comes down to it. So that's why I say we have to have profit as an intention versus a reward in your small business.
That's very interesting. Tell us about how entrepreneurs can start to unlock hidden profits in their business.
We need to understand where your hidden profits may be, or where your profits may be going, if you will. Now, we'll start with 2 of these strategies. These are the 2 that everybody thinks of. Either you raise your price or you cut costs. And these are, I will say, what people know, but I want to talk a little bit about them because universally, if I say raise your price, most every business owner says no. I can't do that. My clients won't pay that. There's no way. We're already the most expensive. Well, price is really a value proposition. And generally, the person with the biggest price resistance is the owner, not the client, the owner. And so price has got to be one of those things that we look at. Cost, again, this is a balancing act. You can cut too many costs. It's like cutting fat from your diet. Every human needs some fat in their diet. Maybe they don't need a whole lot. Maybe they just need a little. But sometimes when people go to cost, what they say is, oh, I can't impact price, so I'm really going to impact cost. I'm going to make up for it all in cost. And at the end of the day, they overcut. They actually hinder the business because they're not investing in the things that the business needs to survive and actually produce revenue. So those are the first 2. Then we look at things like scope creep. We look at time slippage, which is basically how long does it take your firm to be able to do things. We look at things like your profit mix, your capacity, your productivity, all of these differing places, which are actually a little harder for the most business owners to see, they all impact your profit. And so you've got to understand that profit is a much more robust type of an environment, it's not simply your price or your costs. It is actually everything that happens in the business from the time your work comes in to the time your bill gets paid. Every aspect of that can impact your profit.
Thank you. Tell us how entrepreneurs can optimize one of these hidden profits.
Well, let's take my favorite word, time slippage. I like the funny name to it, right? Because it really is about time slipping. And so, especially if you're in, I'll say product or service-based business, this will actually impact you in both ways. But if you have a project or a product that should take, let's say, 12 minutes to do, then if your pricing is based upon that productivity and suddenly it starts taking 15 minutes to do or 24 minutes to do, your capacity's been greatly reduced, which means you're experiencing all the investment and the cost in producing your product or service, but you're not generating the same amount of revenue, which is going to negatively impact your profitability at the end of the day. Now, this happened in our first business. In my first business, we had a completely creative product. We did one-off type of projects specific to a client. And I bring this up because for so many people that have maybe a more creative business, they'll tell me, oh, but I can't do that because it's completely different. I can't find a process. And truly, that's not entirely true because you have a method, right? And we just paid attention to what our method was. And by doing that, we could take a project from beginning to end that might have taken us, 10 weeks before to get done for a client. And we could compress it to 5 weeks. And before, whereas that 10-week project, I might not be able to start a new client until 5 weeks in. Now in our compressed setting, we could start a project every week. So it's essentially you almost, it's not a times 5, it's actually about a times 10. You 10 times the ability of the business to produce with the same level of resources. I didn't need more team. I didn't need more computers. I didn't need more software. I just needed a very refined and efficient process that enabled us to churn, enabled us to do a greater volume without killing ourselves. And as a consequence, we made more money. And making more money in a shorter period of time tends to mean more money can flow through once you've actually passed your break-even point.
Thank you. What kind of process should entrepreneurs put in place in order to reduce the time something takes?
First, you have to track what you're doing. And second is find that process. I personally believe we need systems and processes where it's technology based, but also finding the opportunities for things like automations. We were just working on a couple of client projects that are automative in nature. And one of the things we are finding, great example of profitability and process going hand in hand. But what we found is this one business, they had some expenses that weren't being charged back to the client, and partly because they do a lot of work. There's a lot of details, and they were just getting missed. Well, that was like $40,000 that was getting missed, getting charged back. So the business ate it. It's essentially $40,000 in profit. Right at this point in time, it was eating into the profits. So we were creating an automation that all you have to do is forward an email. The automation takes a look at who the client is, how much the expense was, where is it from, what's the date, turns it around and puts it back into the client management system so it can be billed. That instant thing, because by the time you turn off the email to the time that gets back into the expenses, is something that can happen in 30 seconds. A human can't do it in 30 seconds. Right? A human would have to go stop what they're doing, go over to the system, open up the system, find the client, do those same type things, and maybe it would take 2 minutes. But it is an example of a system and a process that's incredibly efficient, that speeds up the workings of the business and captures that lost revenue that wasn't there before.
Thank you. Tell us another hidden profit and how that particular element could be optimized in order to lead to, over the long term, have bigger profit.
Yeah, so let's talk about scope creep, because scope creep is really interesting. I call this the sensuous moment. So my husband loves when I say this, and it's from a comedian, but he talks about, if you're sitting on the sofa like with your spouse or your partner, and they suddenly get up like they're going to go to the kitchen, right? And you're like, oh, since you is up, would you get me a glass of water? Right. And my husband laughs. He goes, you don't even wait for me to get up. You just asked me to get a glass of water. And I was like, well, okay, true. But that moment when we get that little extra ask, it happens. I think it's human nature that it happens. But how do we respond to it? Because to a certain extent, you can be accommodating within a client if you've priced your services properly. But a lot of times that's sensuous. That would you do this while you're in my website? Would you also do X, Y, and Z? Because you're already there, so it shouldn't take you anymore. But it's negating the whole cost of the time to do the actual task. How you handle those is really important in a business. So a lot of times we work with things like helping our clients use the power of a positive no, which is like basically where you say, I totally understand how that would bring you value, and it would be a great thing to add. However, it's outside of our current scope. I'm happy to add to it, but that would increase our budget and our timeline. If you're okay with that, just let me know. And that really puts it back onto the client to say, is your budget or your timeline important enough to maintain, or do we incorporate this and be able to do that? But I think the other part that we have to talk about is the scope creep that we as owners, as business owners, do to ourselves, right? And I think this sometimes comes from our confidence in the value of our product. Our desire to make people happy, if we would identify with being a people pleaser, and those extras, while if you haven't accommodated for them in your pricing, and that's the caveat here, then they erode your profitability. And as the owner, it's your job to protect that as much as you positively can, and be able to do things. So I happen to be somebody, my firm, one of our values is that we give generously. I have designed the entirety of around my business, from the pricing to the service to how we do what we do to the automations and the systems behind to give us the ability to do what we do based on generosity. Like, it is part of the business model. But oftentimes people choose to be the low-cost leader on their pricing and then give away the moon at the back end. And they wonder what's going on. Why am I not making money? Why is there not enough left over for me at the end of the day? And when you're asking that question, it's not a happy place. It's really hard when you are working your tail off to be successful, to provide a living for you and your family, and you don't have much to show for it. So if you're in that situation, you're listening to the right conversation, right? Because profitability is going to be one of your answers.
Thank you. Take us through another one of the hidden profits elements and how to optimize it.
Sure. Okay. I shouldn't tell you this one, but because this is kind of my secret weapon, but I think it's worth sharing with you guys. So capacity. Now, that doesn't sound very sexy. It doesn't sound sexy at all. I will tell you that hands down, it's one of the areas that when we come into a business, we can see that the business has capacity for more. Case in point, we had a client come in, a professional services firm, looked at their business, very busy, and actually looked at how many people were on staff, what their billability is, what they were doing in terms of project size and all of these things. And I looked at her and I said, okay, I think your business could be 4 times larger than it is today with everything you have. And that owner was like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, yeah, I think so. And here's why. You've got your capacity of staff. Your billable hours has been decreasing, but your expenses have all been staying the same. I was like, and we just went through point by point, and they were fun enough to say, okay, let's try. And so in 9 months, just in 9 months, we quadrupled the business. That is a story of capacity. They had the capacity. They were essentially running at about 25%. when they could have been running at, closer to 100%. No one's ever at 100%, but closer, even if you could get to 80, most businesses are operating at a 40 to 60% capacity. That little boost to get to 80, that's all profit. And so that is probably one of the areas that most people just don't have enough skill set to identify, or they're discounting how easy it could be to get growth and profitability in their business.
Thank you. Tell us some case studies of companies you have worked with where you were able to unlock the 6 hidden profits in their business and the result that this has had.
We've gotten a few so far in today, but again, another case study where we had a business come in, they've had some good growth, looked at what they were doing with the addition of 1 staff. They could grow, they could go from about mid 350s to about 800,000 in, again, I think in less than a year. We had about 8 months in that year remaining, we were able to get about 60% growth. And in the process, one of the benefits, and this is the benefits of profit, when you're profitable, then as the owner, you're able to reinvest those profits. Perhaps you need to hire more staff. So perhaps you need to invest in a system, or perhaps you've been underpaying yourself for so long. We need to get your salary to be a usual and customary salary for the business owner. And that is what we did, is we wound up tripling our clients' personal take home to up to a usual and customary. And I think it's important to take a side note here, because that's done within the framework of maintaining profitability. And we like to see our owners get paid 3 times. In all honesty, I would like you to receive something regular. That's kind of like a salary. Now, your business entity may have some different restrictions. That's fine. We work with a variety of business entities, but we want something regular because your bills are pretty regular. You still need to eat every day and you need to put a roof over your house, right? You need something regular. Then we like to do it out of profits. And that is that second level. So we just gave her her first level and set up the business to then be able to give her the second level, which was out of the profits of the business. And then the third, in case you're wondering, well, that happens when you get ready to transition out of your business, whether that's an exit, a sale to external or internal parties. That should be the third time that you're paid for your business.
Thank you. What apps, habits, or routines or tools do you recommend for entrepreneurs to leverage in order to unlock hidden profits in their business?
Yeah, so we're going to focus in on money management, because obviously if you're going to have profits, you've got to be able to proactively manage your money to produce profits if there. So there's a couple of things here. I'll start off with a quote that I love, which is, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king or queen. You've heard this before, right? And really, it's important to notice, because you have to have enough revenue to produce a profit. You have to have enough profit to produce cash. So profit on paper can look like a zero bank account, and we don't want that situation to have. So we really have to be very good at managing the money. There are 2 tools that we like to use. One is to put purpose to our profits so that we know what every dollar is going to do, because a dollar that has a purpose will do more for you than a dollar that doesn't. That's going to be based on things like profit plans, being able to have that profit first type of mentality. The second tool that we like to use is a tool called Pocketsmith. And it's out of New Zealand. It's a personal finance management tool, but I will tell you, there's a phenomenal aspect of it that can be used for business money management. And that is a daily calendar that anticipates your daily balance in your bank accounts for the next 10 years. And this is such a gift of a tool. So if you use Waze or use Google Maps or something to get around when you're driving, that is what this tool does for your money.
Wow.
And so often, so many business owners are so afraid to invest in something because they don't know what's going to happen to their money. So I will say that's definitely hands down a tool that we think improves our business owners' ability to manage their money.
Thank you. Tell us more about any routines or habits that you recommend for entrepreneurs to use in order to unlock hidden profits?
So I am going to go back to one of the biggest reasons that people have problem with profits. And a lot of that has to do with some money mindsets. We all come into business with a money story of one way, shape, or form. And one of my early ones happened to be that growing up, our family was pretty poor. And it was one of my jobs to, as a 12-year-old, ride up to the grocery store, buy the week's grocery for a family of 5 on $20. And granted, this was the 80s, right? But still, $20 doesn't go very far. And I remember going to the grocery store and planning it out and grabbing coupons, like borrowing my neighbor's coupons, planning for sales, doing everything I could do to make that dollar stretch. The worst moment in my life was the cash register. Because even though I had a piece of paper and I was adding everything up, if I forgot something, if I didn't do the math right, and I got to the register and I had to return something, that moment I felt like a failure. I was embarrassed, right? If I had room, maybe I could get a sweets, maybe a little package of sweets for the family. And that felt like the reward I had won. So at this very young age, I had this money story developing about when I was winning and when I was failing. That was one of the money stories I had to overcome as a business owner in order to become a good money manager. Now, that is an aspect that is definitely helpful, but one of the other aspects is really about having a vision of what you're building your business for, what it's going to do for you as a person, for your family, what's the impact that you're going to have. We do oftentimes walk people through revising their vision or reigniting their vision. Because again, if you don't have purpose, if your money doesn't have purpose, it's going to find its way to go somewhere else. Because money likes to do two things. It likes to grow and it likes to flow. So you've got to give it purpose so that it grows in the way that you want it to, and it flows to the places you want it to. So those are a couple of habits to think about. So work on your money mindset, find out what those money stories are, and then make sure that you've got a very strong, compelling vision so that you can put purpose to everything that you do.
Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can find you.
Sure. So we actually have a great page just for your listeners. So you can go to yourbizrules.com/ATP. So Amazing Titans podcast. And we've got a few things there for you. A lot of the things that we talked about are actually from our book, First This, Then That. So we have a free book guide there that you can download. If you'd like to buy the book, you can do that. Or if you're ready for somebody to take a look at your business and like to see how we could help, there's a way that you can get in contact with us there.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.